Hi guys, welcome back to the Head Falconer. So today the question is coping or not coping. What I mean by that is, do you give your bird a manicure and pedicure or not? So all coping really is to explain. It's very, very simple, very easy. It is when you have to snip a bit off a bird's overgrown beak or snip a bit off the bird's talons. I don't mean to snip to blunten them, I mean to snip to reshape back to the way they are supposed to be. Because in captivity, well, my birds in particular anyway, spend a lot of time eating off a glove. Where if they're not eating off the glove, they are in their aviaries eating off a perch. We try hardest not to feed in aviaries because we don't like feeding in aviaries, especially our flying birds, we don't like feeding in aviaries. So they spend a lot of time eating off the glove. Out in the wild, they spend a lot of time eating off abrasive surfaces, so rocks, stones, ground, trees, and so on. So it naturally wears the bird's beak down. Saying that, we have had a few rescue birds in, wild rescue birds in with overgrown beaks and talons. I'm not sure the circumstances why that happened, but we have in the past been able to cope them, get them fit and healthy again, and release them back out into the wild. But in captivity, we tend to cope maybe once, sometimes twice a year, depending on situations. And I feel I am pro coping. I love to cope. My birds, I'd say, don't love to cope my birds, but I will cope my birds, because if not, I feel it's an animal welfare issue, having a bird with an overgrown beak. Because that can lead to abnormal beaks, that can lead to not eating properly, and so on. So what do you need for coping a bird? Well, let's go through the equipment before we show you us coping a bird. So, very simple, very easy. Number one, you need a bird. You'll see that bird in a minute. You actually should see two birds in this video being coped. We have these, snips. So, we've got snips. We have these files. These are clock. Start again. I'm trying to think what these are. These are clockmaker's files. Sorry, my head was gone there. So clockmaker files, so other precision files. We have one that's got smooth sides on both. Flat sides on both. We have one that's got a flat side, and we've got one that's got a crescent moon. So the bird we're coping today is small, so we've got small ones. The other thing we've done is taken off the sharp points, so there are no sharp points, so it can't hurt the bird at all. And the other thing is, we have got one on the side of the double flat one. We have one abrasive side and one smooth side. So that way round, I know which way to work with the bird. We don't want the abrasive side near the bird, so that's where the smooth side goes into it. The last thing you need, and don't tell the wife on this one, is a tea towel. We've got our own equipment out with the birds, but it's out in the car. But to be honest, it is pouring it down. It's been pouring it down here for quite a while now, so I don't want to get wet, so I pinched the wife's tea towel. So don't tell her that, and we can use that, because you have to cast the bird. And you'll see that in the video. You actually see it now in the video. Because this is a small kestrel, this is Toby, because he's small I can do it in one hand. If it was a bigger bird, then I'll use both hands to go round the body. Once I've restrained the bird, it goes to Arik, and Arik wraps in a tea towel. There is different methods of doing this. You can use what you call a casting jacket. We can show you that in one of our equipment videos. We can also, or I just hold on to the bird myself. Arik much prefers the tea towel. He feels more comfortable, which then obviously helps him out, which helps the bird out. The trick is, when Arik has to hold him, he's got to hold on to him hard enough that he feels he's secure, but not too hard that he feels that you're hurting him, because you don't want little Toby to feel you're going to hurt him. Also, before I ever start trimming a beak, or coping a beak should I say, I take a picture, before and after. I do that each time, so I've got references. I've got a reference of what work has been done and how the bird looks. First job when it comes to me coping a beak, take a bit of the point off, because obviously that's the overgrown part. Take a bit of that off. Quickest way for doing that is my snips. So I've got the snips out, I take a bit off. It's very important, well I believe it's very important, that you have all the tools lined out before you start. Because what you don't want to do is restrain the bird, get halfway through and go, oh, I need snips, oh, wait a minute, I need files. So everything's lined out. Now we start filing. With the bird's beak, the way it's built up, it's got a layer of keratin on the outside. So that's the same stuff that your nails and hair is made out of. And what you have to do is file through that, or file it off. Some birds have got an extra tough beak, some have got weak beaks. Toby's is not too bad actually, the files are moving it quite quickly. Again, there's other methods out there that people use. I'm not saying the files are the best method, but that's what fits with me. There is people out there that use Dremels. Like the Dremel sander things, the small ones. And yeah, I can see it with big birds. I wouldn't do it with small ones. I know people do it with small ones, but me personally wouldn't trust myself not to slip.
I have seen a couple of people use Stanley knives, which literally just shaves the bit of the beak off. Again, I would never ever have a Stanley knife that close to a bird's beak, because I've nearly seen it slip and go into the bird. So files is what I like. When you're filing a bird's beak, I always start with the top mandible, get the shape roughed out. Then we open the beak, and then it allows me to get the curve better. Also allows me to see the bottom or the lower mandible. So here we go. I'm using the end of the file to allow Toby to bite it. Then I can get my finger into his mouth. First thing I did there, you may have noticed, I actually took a little bit off the lower mandible, because while I put my finger in there, I felt a sharp bit. So we took a little bit off, but I always take as well about a mil off the front of the lower mandible, because we have seen overgrown lower mandible split or actually push the top mandible out a bit, so it deforms it as well. So once I've done all that, I can move back on to the beak. If you watch the video, you may notice me, I have a look, I file, I stop. I then have a look, I file, then stop. You can always take more off, but you can't add it on. Hence why I like my files. And you also need to make sure it's the same shape on both sides, and it's also a natural shape, the way the beak is supposed to be formed. So this is why you can see me stop and start, stop and start. Once I've done it, I'll then stop, have a good look at the bird's beak, make sure there's nothing else I need to do, and then we can let it go. Once you've unwrapped the bird, once it's on the glove, we feed. We never feed before you cope or before you restrain a bird, because you might put pressure on the crop, which could puncture it if you've got sharp bones in there, or it can make the bird vomit the food back up again. So we feed afterwards. It also allows you to finish on a positive note at the end of the coping. So it builds that bond back up again, because obviously you just grabbed and restrained the bird. So you build that bond up. So I've double checked the beak, I've had a look, and up it comes. If you've got any questions about coping or what we've done, please do leave them in the comments. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and we will see you again soon. Cheers guys.